Hi, I'm Juan Rivera. I've had over 20 years of residential and commercial construction experience. I've traveled the world and lived around the U.S. Over the years, I've seen and completed many projects both small and large. I'm the owner of Renaissance Development Group, Inc., a full-service construction company, and I know remodeling. Each week, I'll bring you the tips, tricks, and trends of home remodeling and improvement. We'll talk to local contractors and industry experts about the latest new trends for your home and remodeling projects. We'll show you the ins and the outs to make your project easier. So join us for the next 30 minutes on Remodeling Now. Hi, thanks for joining us today on Remodeling Now. I'm Juan, your host. Today we have an exciting show brought to you here at Beauvoir, which is the home of Jefferson Davis, the Confederate States of America's first and only president. We're going to be met with today the director of the facility, Rick Fort, and he's going to take us on this tour and take us into some areas that are private, that are not seen to the public. So stay tuned and join us and have a great time. Well, Rick, I appreciate you letting us come out here and spend some time with us to go over this beautiful place called Beauvoir.
Absolutely.
And that means in French?
Beautiful view.
And I got to tell you, it is absolutely a beautiful view from here. And as
well,
you were just telling us,
Sarah Dorsey stood right here and looked out and said, what a beautiful view, when she bought the property. And this is where you get so much different from right here than on the ground.
No doubt about it.
But it means beautiful view in French, and it was called Orange Grove before that. And it was Satsuma oranges, not the type oranges in Florida.
Right.
But I think Beauvoir suits it a lot better.
Absolutely, because you were just telling me before we got here, we walked up, wait till you see the view from the porch. It is truly magnificent. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so this house first was built by whom, though?
James Brown, who was a planter from Madison County, Mississippi, which is right up above Jackson. As a matter of fact, the Nissan plant is on part of his plantation up there. He built it from 1848 to 1852 is when he finished. And this was a summer cottage for his family. It was never a plantation. It was strictly a summer home for his family. And we wondered whether he was his own architect before the storm. There was different discussion of who the architect was. Well, we now know he was his own architect because we found too many mistakes. The architect wouldn't have made.
Right.
But what he did, he built the basic structure, and then he called artisans from New Orleans in to do the finish work.
Okay.
And this is called a raised Louisiana style house, which means it is 10 feet off the ground. Obviously, flood water from hurricanes, also the breeze.
Okay.
The breeze is a cooling factor. They used to keep these doors open. You get a breeze constantly through there. You can raise these windows. You notice the windows, they go 1, 2, and then 3, all the way to the top.
Okay.
So you can have a door all the way around if you want one.
And that will open up, to, like you were saying, to a breeze from all 4 sides,
That's
basically.
Right. That's right.
So that they can just go all the way around.
That's
like
correct.
that.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, obviously, James Brown had it and built it. Now I was reading something and some of the information you guys had. They didn't make it a plantation because the soil is not suitable.
No plantations on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Soil is not right for doing anything other than what you see really out here. You know,
and that's just to enjoy it.
That's it. That's correct.
A getaway place. And he had how many children?
James Brown,
yes.
11.
Wow.
And really he built these 2 cottages. It was kind of a European type thing to set off the house. This one was actually used as a schoolroom for his children and a library, but it could also go as a guest cottage. This one was built exclusively for a guest cottage over here.
And then how long did James Brown
Well, he
own
died,
this
you know, a lot of people don't realize, but the average age for people back then was 45 years old, and he was around that when he died. And it passed through a couple of hands before we really talk about 3 major owners, and that's James Brown, who built it, Sarah Dorsey, and Jefferson Davis.
Correct. And
then Mississippi Division, son of the Confederate veteran.
Correct.
4.
Right.
So after his death, Sarah Dorsey and her husband bought the property, and they had owned plantations in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. That's another thing a lot of people don't know, that the 10% planter class of the South. They didn't own one plantation, they owned a bunch of them.
Several, correct.
Yeah.
And
so,
different locations as well.
Different locations. And
For
Sarah
different
Dorsey.
product, correct?
That's right.
Correct.
Sarah Dorsey knew Jefferson Davis. Obviously, he was older than her, but he was well known. She was from Natchez, in that area over there, Vicksburg, Natchez area. And found out that he had, well, she bought the property, first of all, and named it Beauvoir. And she loved to come here during different times of the year, but she really lived here most of the time. She really liked it. Jefferson found out Jefferson Davis came down here. He was looking for a place to write his memoirs. And he owned a couple of lots down towards Pascagoula that were overgrown. They were terrible. Somebody invited him to stay in the library cottage. Mrs. Dorsey was not here at that time, and it just got all over that she missed Jefferson Davis. He was a hero to her and thousands of people in the South.
Sure.
And so she invited him back, and one thing led to another, and she rented this cottage to him to do his writing in. We called that the library cottage, and he wrote Rise and Fall of the Confederate Government, and he wrote the other book with a short history of the Confederate States of America.
And as I read, he paid $50 a month?
That's correct.
That's quite a bit of money back then.
That was pretty good bit.
And how did he generate some of his income from that period, given the fact where he came from?
Speak at engagements,
okay.
And but he would not speak to anyone. He was very selective, and kind of like today, you know, he really felt uneasy talking to the media because they misquoted him.
Correct.
Just like they do me when I try to tell them. They don't like to hear history, you know. So she wanted to really give this property to Jefferson Davis, and he would not take any charity. He wanted to support himself. And so in 1878, he wanted to purchase the property, and she wanted to give it to him, but sell it to him for $5,500, which was several outbuildings. Yes, it was. There were several outbuildings out here. There was a pier with the bathhouse on the end of it. He did that with 3 payments. He made one payment, and she died of cancer. And he inherited the rest of the property.
From her?
From her. But he wanted to pay it out, and he paid it out to her estate.
Oh, really?
She really didn't have any children or anybody. She supported a lot of her relatives, and she gave them things, but you know, it really was kind of an interesting part of history right there. But Jefferson Davis really loved Beauvoir because of the beauty, the solitude, everything he was looking for, really. There's really, at that time, it's 5 miles to Biloxi and about 5 miles to Mississippi City. Of course, Gulfport was not there. So, and there was a little dirt road out here. I'll show you when we go inside what it looked like when he lived here. It looked like a bank of a river, no beach.
Right.
And there was, like I said, the pier with the bathhouse. The artist painted in 1883, and you'll see what it really looked like.
They probably didn't have sunbathers like we have today.
We didn't have any traffic. Now, the railroad, basically the same spot it is now, back there. And they had a little station called Beauvoir Station where he caught the train to New Orleans or Mobile.
Okay.
And, but he lived here from 1877 when he rented till his death of December 6, 1889. Okay. And Verena, his wife, now she liked Beauvoir, but not this time of the year. The humidity and the heat got to her. She also liked metropolitan areas and a lot of people socialize, and he was not like that. He liked his time alone with his own thoughts. And his favorite place to sit was right here. As a matter of fact, he had a hammock stretched across here that he also liked to utilize from time to time. But people would show up by appointment to see him, many famous people, Oscar Wilde, General Early, and just a lot of generals and for both sides. Some were invited, some were not, but he had never turned anyone away. As a matter of fact, he would serve them his food a lot of times, and he didn't have any food, but he was that type person.
By all accounts that I've read, a gentleman in every sense of the word.
Absolutely.
Well, let's go ahead and go inside and see what we can see.
All right. Now, before we go in, we had a paint historian come in before they started the restoration, and you know, everything in this society today is specialized. And he took a dental pick, and he took Q-tips with paint remover, and in a microscope, and he went and found the original colors of everything in the house,
Wow.
And one of the great discoveries that he found with these doors, oak was the wood that was the king of woods that people used for everything. Well, oak doors were too heavy, so they used cypress doors. But they painted a faux oak finish. That is painted on oak graining.
Really?
Yes.
That is magnificent.
And all the doors in the house were like that, and they were painted over white paint. Now, I suspect the reason for that was because it was expensive to repaint every so many years.
Correct.
And they didn't have the money to do it, so they just painted white over it.
Well, cypress is obviously, and back then cypress was farmed out of water, so it was a great laster of time for the weather.
That's correct.
So obviously, as you well know, through the Gulf Coast all the way up to New Orleans, the window sashes, windows, exterior woods, even a lot of the framing was done in cypress. But this is incredible.
That's right.
How long does it take them to do this?
We had a husband and wife team. They had to paint 3 things: the faux oak finish. Also, we got the two fire mantles in the parlor and the library room are made out of Italian marble. The rest of them are wood mantles, but they painted a faux marbling on those. And that was discovered underneath too. It took them a little over a year to do this. And of course they did the fresco art you're fixing to see that was already there. They redid that. But again, they found the exact pattern and refined it, the exact colors. Jeff Davis came back today. He came through these green doors, which that's new too. We used to have a marble entrance that was knocked down, we think, by one of the casino barges because we found some poker chips that belonged to them and a cleat that they tied it down with underneath there. But we put this back because that was what was there when Jefferson Davis lived here.
He would think he just got back home again.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely beautiful. It's a wonderful tidbit of history too in terms of that information. Wow.
Well, it's come a long way since Katrina. Now, what I always do when somebody comes in is I show them this photograph of the front of Beauvoir on the east side taken right after the storm. And you can see the porch completely gone. And it was an integral part of the roof. And so when it took the porch out, it ripped these holes in there, and it also ripped plaster out of the 2 front Winnie's bedroom in the front parlor.
How fortunate that in being attached the way you're talking about here, that it did not do more damage to the roof structure itself. And this was a horseshoe.
That's correct. That's correct. Only one chimney got knocked down right about here. The rest of the chimneys, there's 6 chimneys, made it through.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Very fortunate that the storm just didn't take the whole thing out altogether.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
What a sad thing that would have been to lose such history.
Oh, absolutely.
Regardless of what one's preference is for the North.
Well, James Brown, whose portrait is over here on the wall with his wife, is the man that built this house from like I said, from 1848 to 1852, and he picked the right spot. The only thing I can tell you is he picked the right spot because it's been through over 30 hurricanes since 1852. It's the last National Historic Landmark house left on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Wow. Now, our ceiling heights in here are how high?
14 feet.
14 feet. And what type of painting do you guys call this?
Fresco. Actually, fresco art is painted on wet plaster, but it's decorative art, but we call it fresco art because originally it probably was done there.
Because it's reminiscent of something that would have been done in Europe.
That's correct.
More specifically in Italy.
That's
where
correct.
they get that term from, correct?
That's correct.
And the ceilings and everything are like this as well.
The only original painting left of the flowers and the urns at both ends, that is the original flowers.
That looks excellent.
Everything else has been gone over with a fine-tooth comb by the husband and wife team that stayed here over a year and painted the walls and the ceiling in the reception hall and the front parlor and then the library room.
How much repair was needed in terms of the actual plaster now?
Pretty good.
Because obviously back in those days they didn't have a drywall like we have today.
No. Well, they had to make it the same way they made it then. They had to do everything the way it was done then. And I learned how plaster stuck. I always wondered how they could get that stuff. And they got all the little, but they got those little boards, and it's got to be the right texture, and they push it, and then it comes through, and it rolls over, and that's the key, they call it, and that locks it up. I learned I got a PhD in restoration now. I watched them go from the ground up, and this is called the reception hall, And you notice the corners are rounded in here, not square, and also you'll see that in the front parlor and the library room, and that was a touch of class too. In the bedrooms, you won't see that because guests rarely went into the bedroom. Right. But the husband and wife team, it took them a little over a year to do this artwork, and well, they did a heck of a job.
And the trim around our cased openings here, well, actually, this is a door here, so.
Right.
But our trim is very ornate. Different from even some of the older historical ones that I've done in my time of construction with Renaissance. This is completely different. You have your ovals here, not ovals, but your elongated, and then rounds almost like a rosette. That's one solid piece.
Right, exactly. Like. Well, you know, this, like I said, there's so much, when coming in here before the storm, there was so much detail, you really could not soak it in until you watched everything
being put together.
Come in there.
Yes.
Now, let me take you into the front parlor first.
Okay.
Because this is where Jefferson Davis received all of his guests. And we just got this furniture back about 2 weeks ago, and it was $500 a foot for that material. And we call it the gold room now because it cost $30,000 to do the couch and the chairs. And
wow. Now, so, this is original?
Original. 90% of our furniture and paintings are the original, and a lot of them had to be restored, including the portrait of Jefferson Davis. This lady is Sarah Dorsey, right over here, the one that sold the property to Jefferson Davis. That's not where her portrait normally goes. It's there temporarily until we do have a few more mirrors and pieces of art that go on before we get it exactly right, but it's close.
Okay.
It's close. But you can see the faux oak finish on the pocket doors, they call it, and the regular doors, all of them have the faux oak finish on it.
Yeah, these doors are just truly beautiful. It almost looks like a burl maple kind of with the panels the way they are. The detail is just awesome, but yet you still have that grained look of oak, and they've done a wonderful job of that. Now the floor, what is our floor made out of?
The floor is heart pine, and the support beams are heart pine, the rest of it is cypress.
Excellent.
And
then our windows, I see, when you look through glass, you see the old lead glass. Looks like there's quite a bit left.
Actually, we lost quite a few, but more than half survived, and the replacement, you cannot tell. Well, you can if you have to look real hard, but it's got the waves and the bubbles, just like the original glass. And, you know, it's really hard to tell. And the more that they're here, the harder it is to tell. So, but everything that was used had to pass through FEMA, MEMA, Department of Archives and History, and Secretary of the Interior, National Park Service. So they require the material to either be the real material from another site or the best quality you can buy.
Correct. And of course, with all those different agencies, there's quite a bunch of red tape and making sure that everything is done just right to give them the look that they're trying to get.
That's correct.
What they're trying to do.
That's correct. And again, they were paying 90%, so I listened.
Absolutely. Have it your way,
I
sir.
listened. And this is Rena's, Winnie's piano. There's also a harp missing. There was a harp that Winnie played. It was over in this corner. It's being restored, and it should be back directly.
Very good. Beautiful. Beautiful. Welcome back to Remodeling Now. I'm your host, Juan, and with us is our special guest, Rick Fort, and of course, we're at Beauvoir over here in Biloxi, Mississippi. So, Rick, let's continue on.
All right.
And where are we headed now?
We're going to the youngest daughter's room, Winnie. Her name was Verena Ann, but her nickname was Winnie. And this is her bedroom. This portrait of her was painted when she was the Queen of Mardi Gras in New Orleans in 1892. This room was severely damaged. It was the east side. The plaster was gone from the ceiling and the walls, and a lot of the, I mean, just terrible. You can see that photograph. You can see what I'm talking about.
Because the storm came in this way.
Came in this way, that's correct. Okay. And you can see the storm damage still to the frame. That frame was for that portrait. And I got a little thing here that I want people to donate to help that. But this,
okay, so you have a donation box for the repair of that.
That's right.
Do you guys have a projected cost of what that might be, or it's hard to tell?
We haven't found somebody that actually does that yet.
Wow.
Yeah, we're looking.
You're probably talking several thousands of dollars, I would think.
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, as people come in, they will donate because it's all for a good cause. That's for sure.
That's correct. You see the faux marbling on the wooden mantle up there, and you can touch it and it feels like marble, but that is wood. And that was painted on all the wooden fireplaces. we left this pocket door where he peeled the white paint off and showed the faux oak finish. And we left that one like that to let everybody know that's how he went about it. He did the same thing on that mantel. This other room is Margaret's room, his other daughter's room. In this corner, you'll see we left a patch of what the painting was prior to the storm.
Right.
And the colors were wrong, and it's real flat, and you see if you look at the rest of it, the right colors and an optical illusion of like it's a wood mold almost.
Right, right.
So we left that the same way.
So a lot of people have a misconception that because the house was old and maybe an aristocrat lived in it, that it had a lot of trim at the top, and that's not necessarily true.
That's right. The bedrooms were pretty basic compared to the reception hall. Correct. And the front parlor and the library room.
That is truly interesting, though, about the door, and that's good that you guys left something where somebody can see what the process is.
We did.
And how they do it, because that's quite an undertaking to do that.
Absolutely. I'm going to show you underneath the house we did the same thing.
That is excellent.
We try to do that in every room, more or less. We go into Margaret's room, the oldest daughter, and the daughter that gave Jefferson Davis his only grandchildren. And this was her room, and
how many children, let me interrupt you real quick. How many children did Jeff Davis have?
He had 6.
Okay.
And
he had a son that died, correct?
Three of his sons died when they were children. His oldest son, Jefferson Davis Jr., died at 21 years old in 1878 of yellow fever epidemic. It started up above Memphis and came all the way. And you go to a lot of these old cemeteries, you'll see 1878 on a lot of tombstones. Right. And they still didn't know that mosquitoes were doing it. They thought it was in the air.
Wow.
And his
so only one basically survived.
And then Winnie died at an early age too. But Margaret gave Jefferson Davis his grandchildren, and when she got married to Addison Hayes, Verena, his wife, and Jefferson Davis gave them this furniture in this room as a wedding gift.
Wow.
Yes.
And it's amazing for a guy who quote unquote was broke. I read somewhere they still had a plantation.
That's right.
Even while he was living here.
That's right. Well, he had to go to court and prove that his brother willed that plantation to him, and that just killed him too. You know, and he won, obviously, so he was right. So you know, he would not get into anything if he didn't think he was right. So this tapestry up here was given to Margaret from Winnie, and apparently she measured that spot because that's where it's always been.
Wow.
And
what is that made out of? Tapestry is basically another form of a carpet, so to speak.
Yeah, she bought that in Egypt or somewhere in that area over there when she was on one of her trips. And but anyway, this is Margaret's doll. We had that restored. Wow. Her original doll.
Pretty good detail considering the time.
It is.
Pretty good detail. And again, the floor is in very good shape. The floor throughout the whole home seems to be in very good shape.
There were a few boards missing here and there, but basically it came out real well. It sure did.
That's always fortunate when a good thing happens to you like that. As does the shutters. They all sit, and of course I realize you guys had
we lost a
lot of those.
But everything was made. There's a fella in Pass Christian that's got all the tools to make this sort of thing. The spindles for the hand railings, the shutters. So they were identical. You can't tell the difference now, you know, from the real ones and the ones that were there.
Very nice.
All right, we'll go to the library room that Jefferson Davis made it his library room. It was actually an extension of the front parlor. And he designed the bookshelves in here himself. And you can see they're very well made and a little different than you see anywhere else.
So these have a cover on them, so you really can't see the books per se.
Well, he kept a lock on them too. He didn't like people borrowing his books.
I guess that's one way of not losing them, huh?
That's correct. And again, they could open these pocket doors when they had a big family function or something here. And again, you know, getting back to after his death, and Verena, we'll save that about the house son of the Confederate veterans got the property, but the actual first veterans lived in this house before they built barracks for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Next week, stay tuned for our second part, where we're going to go and show you some more items that are not necessarily seen to the public here. They can kind of look through the windows, but through the kindness of Rick here in the Beauvoir, we're able to get in some places that you can't get in when you're on the tour. So stay tuned next week, and we'll see you then.